sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the Conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter. Well, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, just about 6 minutes after noon. I can say good afternoon, Joey.
Yeah.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is The Conversation on WMNF, WMNF.org. Are you getting that feedback in your headset? I'm getting a little bit in mine, but that's okay. It's probably my headset. Welcome, everybody, to This is The Conversation. You're listening to WMNF Radio, Community Radio, 88.5, right here in Tampa, WMNF.org. If you're listening from anywhere on the planet, no matter what time you're listening, we're happy to have you with us. You know, we do this show every week, take you right through the noon hour on Hump Day. The Hump Hour on Hump Day. We talk about it all the time, Joey. After this, we're racing towards the weekend.
It's the peak of the peak.
We love that.
Yeah.
All right, Joey. So listen, how was your week off?
It was astounding. I have deep and profound gratitude for what is happening in my world and life, and the weather's been nice.
Can you expound on that?
Well, you know, it's just you have to have gratitude in order to move forward. Otherwise, you're under the thumb of fate. And I don't like that feeling. So, yeah, deep gratitude. But I will say, while I have the bully pulpit, I'm going to say that with all of the things that are happening in our society, I am wanting to reach out to our listening audience and let them know that you may be someone right now who is overwhelmed by current events. And if you are, be kind to yourself. Be good to yourself. I think it's important to take time for yourself because you cannot be actively involved in your community or helping others if your own self is in a bad place. So I think that, right now is a good time for you to remember when you seem overwhelmed by negativity, that this is a time to go for a walk and have a nice meal and be with your friends and connect, because that's what's important.
Here. And stay hydrated, because that's important too. You know, a lot of times we don't realize it, but we start to feel a little puny. We start to feel a little off. And it might just be because you need a big old glass of cool, clean water.
There we go.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
Joey, anything special coming up this week?
Anything special coming up with you? Well, I understand that there's some kind of an event happening at Mosey this week. Am I correct?
There is. Thank you for mentioning that, because I'll be there on Friday and I'll be emceeing. And I tell you what, I'm so happy to be a part of it. It's Allison Fonseca and Station House Barbecue, and they're doing a fundraiser. It is a wonderful opportunity to meet and greet people. For me, I always love being amongst Tampeños and people like us.
Yes.
Right? That always, lead with empathy and caring and kindness. Fundraisers I'm always happy to be a part of. And this is no exception. So Mosey at Friday, it's from 6 to 9. And I tell you what, I'm going to be there and I'll have my smile on, which I usually do. Right, Joey?
Absolutely. I've never seen you out smileless.
Dang, Joey. He has seen me that way. For those of you listening, don't let him sell you that. I'm not impervious to those moments where I feel sad and I feel blue. And you know what? It's easy to do that because of the things that we're besieged with on the news these days. I mean, our country is falling apart, and we're not going to talk about that today so much. We're going to talk about that in the future.
Yeah.
But to allude to Joe's point again, we do have to step back every now and again because it's overwhelming. And those of us that are empaths, those of us that feel it more than others, it's a bit much. It'll keep you up at night. So here's your noon hour Wednesday revival. Let's call it that. And today we've got a beautiful guest in studio with us. And in keeping with our monthly assignment here at WMNF, we're going to be talking about environmental issues this month. We're going to try to stay as close to that as possible. And today's no exception. Joey, would you do the honors and introduce our guest?
Well, today we have with us Hannah McAleer.
Hey, Hannah.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Hannah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So, Hannah, let's talk, as we do here on The Conversation, about personal narratives. What part of the world did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Southeast Arkansas. Very small town.
Wow.
Yeah. Most of the time when I say I'm from Arkansas, people say,
Sweet.
what town?
Yeah,
and then they expect you to say Little Rock, but that's not it. That's
Right.
the only
There
town
are
anyone
other towns
knows.
in Arkansas.
Yeah. So grew up there most of my life.
I see.
Suffice to say that everybody in Arkansas is a Razorback fan? Or what are the other
Pretty-
alternatives? Besides Razorbacks, what else would you cheer for coming out of Arkansas?
In South Arkansas, you have a lot of LSU Tiger fans too,
Okay,
because
okay.
we're kind of equal distance
There
from
you
those
go.
two, and some Mississippi State Bulldogs too.
So for somebody like myself who's plugged into that whole college athletic scene, that's a great thing to know because, you don't, it's a regional thing. It's a geographic thing. You might live in one state, but if you're not too far across the state line from, say, an LSU, you might be saying, go Tigers.
Right. Yeah.
But it's suey pig for you guys.
So-
I know.
So when you were growing up there, you had a famous governor named Bill Clinton. Was he governor part of your time there?
He was, and actually, my cousin and I were in our high school band class, and I might have been in middle school at the time when he went into office. But when he went into office, they had a send-off, and our band was invited to play
really?
for the governor's send-off right before his inauguration. So that was kind of exciting.
Interesting.
You bet it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get to see old Bill?
I did. I think probably somewhere in a shoebox there's a photo of me and him together too. But
Oh, really? Wow.
So she buried the lead, Joey. She said she was in the high school band. Let's you and I take a guess at what instrument she might have played. Joey, you first.
Oh no,
on.
I don't know.
It's only one of two for me.
Yeah. What? Well, I'm going to say.
I'm going to go with clarinet or flute.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say flute.
yeah, both way off. I did percussion.
Nice. A girl after our own heart. Did
She
you play
a
the
drummer.
quads? Did you play the quads? Were the quads a thing then? Not yet. They were just coming in.
No, it was.
Did you carry the bass drum? The big bass drum?
I actually did in my 10th grade when I went to school in
Wow,
Nashville in the marching field. But before that, I did the cymbals, and those things are heavy.
They are.
When you're a little 11-year-old girl
Yes.
out there for halftime with cymbals, they can get a little
The
heavy.
Clash, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, fun. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
with us.
The
and
cymbal-
I was way off, brother.
Oh yeah,
Way off.
we were both off. Why?
Percussion, great.
Why would I don't know why we did that? Cymbals.
it's
You know what
interesting,
cymbals are
Joe.
like?
Yes.
They're kind of like a when you ring a bell.
Yes. Yes, they accentuate like that.
Like that. They're
you
kind of
go.
like that.
I like that.
They're the accentuation. They're very powerful. You have to be very. You have to be very.
Your timing has to be good.
You have to be very important.
Is
I
there
think.
music written for cymbals? We're getting way off track. Is there music written for cymbals? Or does your
Yeah.
band director just tell you know when to hit it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had sheet music that I had to
Of course
follow.
you had to. Of course you had to.
I don't know how well I followed it. But
So you're in Arkansas and you're in high school, and what happens from there? You graduate and by the way, do you have siblings?
Yeah.
I do. I have a sister, but then I also have 3 cousins who might as well be siblings. We spent every single day
Oh,
together.
Small town.
Yeah, very small town.
Right.
We lived in town. They lived in the country. So
okay.
we had a
Smaller
mix
town.
of both, right?
And you were all hanging out together a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Staying outside.
Was that kind of a
as
skipping,
many hours as our
skipping
parents would let us.
stones and Whitland kind of an environment? You know what I mean? Was it a
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of a slow paced and you guys just have fun, making up your own fun as you go?
We did. We would make up games in the yard, climb trees, run around just doing silly stuff.
See, Joey,
Right.
that's a
Making up
Mayberry
games.
RFD kind of a situation. Then maybe you and I might be a little, we don't understand that. because-
Well, what are you talking
Bradenton.
about?
You're a Bradenton guy. So I digress. You're
No,
Bradenton.
I'm a Georgia guy. I'm a family. All my kin are from Georgia, son.
Yeah, but you didn't grow up there.
No, but I grew up in it. I grew up in that culture, just like
Were you skipping
You didn't
stones?
grow up in Cuba.
Because Hannah was skipping stones.
Well, I was just going to say, Arkansonians. What are they called?
Arkansans.
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 Thank you, Joey.
They're Southerners. We don't think of them as Southerners in a way because we think of the South as
They're not.
east of
They're
the
not far
Mississippi.
enough north to be Midwest. They're Southerners.
They're Southerners.
Back to the narrative. We're
Yeah,
getting off track.
and you can tell when you're talking to them sometimes.
Arkansas, baby.
Yeah,
Go on.
there you go.
Go
Yeah.
on.
The accent comes out a lot when I go visit family. If I stay too long, it
That's
gets
good, though.
worse
That's
and worse
endearing.
day after day.
It's endearing for the girls, not so much for the boys. I'm just going to say it out loud.
I've known a couple of people over my lifetime from Arkansas who had really thick accents, very strong.
Can happen.
Yeah. So you have siblings. You're in the small town. You grow
Mom
up.
and
You go
dad.
to high school, and then what happens?
Yeah, I lived in Nashville for a little bit in high school too, and then when I graduated, I went to Auburn University.
Auburn. There we go.
You want to say it or you want me to say
No,
it?
go ahead.
War Eagle.
War
Come
Eagle.
on now.
Yep.
Just don't say Roll Tide.
Yeah,
So,
right.
So we're here today with you, Hannah, because you have a distinct connection to, in keeping with this month's theme, which is environmental. Before we get too far astray, too far afield, tell everybody what you do now, what your study was, your passion is, and then we'll kind of pick up again where...
Come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to your personal narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a landscape architect. I'm the director of landscape architecture at RVI, Planning and Landscape Architecture. We're a national firm with 5 offices in Florida, but I lead the landscape architecture team here in Tampa.
And so now that we know that,
Well, Joey, I mean, isn't that just an opening to ask maybe what does a landscape artist do?
landscape architect.
Yeah, what is?
Well, let's talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we do a little bit of everything. I'm not sure where to start, but we really dive into different types of projects. It can be small-scale projects, large-scale projects. I've worked on projects that are a small, passive pocket park type or plaza. It might be no more than 50 feet wide. And I've worked on projects that are thousands of acres. So there's a wide range in
Wow.
what we do.
That is a wide range.
Makes it exciting for us. But we really, what we do, what's at the heart of what we do is making places that people can live and thrive in and can become part of their story.
Fabric of the
Yes.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I came, I'm just going to take a little left turn real quick.
Okay.
When I came to Ybor City and became involved and started to grow and learn, I became a historic preservationist essentially. And then I eventually chaired the Barrio Latino Commission several times. And in that process, the Barrio Board often has a landscape architect on the board, in which you are, if I'm not incorrect, you must do so many hours a year that have to do with, I don't know if it's called public service or what it's called, but these architects would serve on the board. And that's when I first realized really anything. I grew up in nature. My parents had sort of a little semi-rural farm. We had avocados and mangoes and bananas down an hour south of here. I grew up around all this stuff, but I'd never really thought about planning nature, planning landscapes, and how that really works. And the entire subject is incredibly fascinating.
Hannah, elaborate on that.
Yeah, I grew up playing in the woods and outside and
Right.
never really understood that attachment, but we would do just fun things outside all the time.
Right.
Living in more of a rural town, we weren't exposed to cities very much, but
Good for you.
there's also the city component. So when you do visit a city, you get to see, oh, wow, there's these giant buildings and all of these public spaces that are just bustling. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy. You see both sides there. And also growing up, we traveled a lot around more rural towns, really. We had a lot of family in Mississippi and South Louisiana. So we would drive from town to town. And as we'd go through every town, my dad would tell stories about the town. Sometimes they were completely made up. He would just he would
Go
come
Dad.
up with a
Sounds
story.
like Dad's got it going on.
He did. He was
If he didn't know the
very
story, he'd make it
entertaining.
up.
We didn't have iPads and things like that to keep us entertained.
Granddaddy.
So we had to have other things to do. So
Right.
so he would tell stories about places, and often it was some made up story about how the town got its name, but it sticks with me. I heard a town name on a radio
Tree,
show the other
Arkansas.
day. Yeah, and there's a story behind it, and it could be completely made up, or it might be mixed in with his own stories of growing up and spending time in that town or passing through. And that was always fascinating to me, just the stories that come with place. And I think that's really probably a lot of what drove me into landscape architecture. I was initially very interested in architecture, but as I got into the program at Auburn, I realized the architecture program was very much about the form of the buildings themselves.
Right.
And to me, that was kind of boring.
Square, man. It's all
I was-
square.
I was very more interested in
Fluidity of form and
right, just how a space can make you feel, how a space
there you
can
go. Feng shui.
impact
we
your
didn't know what
experience.
feng shui was, but I guess it's kind of indoors. It's feng shui. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
So indoors, it's that. What is it outdoors? What do they call it outdoors?
You could probably call it the same thing.
Oh, I'm sure the Japanese have
Let's
a.
call it Hannah's way.
I'm
We're
sure
gonna
they
make
have
it
a
up.
word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you started to your connection to nature growing up sort of manifested itself in this way, right?
Yeah, and it really, for me, is more about the experience than the design itself. And we bring that into our projects where when we start looking at something, we're not just thinking about the design. We're thinking about how is this space going to be used, what's going to be happening here, what could happen here that we don't know about, and kind of programming for that also in advance.
The feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, in kind of accordance with our monthly theme, the thing that's fascinating about landscape is that it has all of these layers of issues for people in the community, because you have people who want only native plants in an area. You have people who shun the idea of importing plants that are not supposed to be here. They become invasive. You have, of course, just the entire ecological system of what is good for nature, what is not good for nature. And so it's not simply like I planned an area with plants and that's my job. There's so much more involved in that, right?
Very much. And community input really is important in getting community buy-in to support what you're doing, but also, listening to the community and incorporating that into the project. But also some of it is educating them, if they are wanting to do something that maybe is not the best thing. There's a way to educate them respectfully and just help them understand why maybe there's a better decision. So a lot of what we do is involved with
Does
that.
that sometimes fall to you, Hannah? Are you the one that has to advocate for, listen, I'm just going to explain it to you this way, then you show your pictures and lovingly you explain why maybe that waterfall isn't the best thing for the,
Yes.
water being a precious resource kind of a thing.
Right. A lot of times it is. And also, we get into that with the community. We get into that with our clients, educating them. Sometimes we're even, helping municipal staff understand the importance of different things too. And
You have to be
maybe
that
why-
bridge.
Yeah, maybe why something, if it doesn't exactly meet the code requirement, this might be a really great idea because it has all of these other benefits.
Interesting, yeah.
There's the technical component as well and the legal component as well. So there's multifaceted.
Oh, yeah.
But are you having fun? Are you having fun doing it? Because it seems to me like you haven't wiped that smile off your face. And it's a beautiful smile. You haven't wiped that smile off your face since you got here, because I think you've been gearing up to wanting to talk about this since you knew we were going to have you on.
Yes, I do enjoy what I do,
Sure.
and I really enjoy who I work with. I've had the pleasure of working with some really great team members over the last 20 years since I've been in the Tampa area, and then also clients. Clients have become friends and people you really care about. So it's really just enjoyable
and Joey knows
to work
this
with
because we
people.
have a dear friend who is a programmer here as well, who hopefully will grace our show at the end of the month, and she's completely devoted and dedicated to all things.
The Miss Annie Ellis.
Annie Ellis, and she's devoted to all things that grow out of the soil and wonderful. And so these people tend to share that personal characteristic. You know what I mean? They're connected, literally grounded to the soil.
Right.
In your case, when you, how did you, this is a Joey question, but I'll throw it at you. How did you decide to go into this particular corner of study? Rather, did it come to you in a moment of inspiration? Did you gradually move a little bit left, a little bit more further left, until finally you got to this place where environmental science and environmental, what's the phrase I'm looking for?
Architecture.
Architecture, thank you, Joey, is what you decided upon?
I was really influenced by one of the professors who was a chair of landscape architecture, and he knew me through the studios I was doing at the time, and he came to me and said, come to one of my classes. And then he said, give me a semester. And at first I said, landscape architecture. A lot of people don't know what it is, and I was one of those
Absolutely.
people, and I just thought it's nothing but plants,
Right.
But it was so much more than that, and the program there was really focused on design philosophy and learning a lot from that and learning a lot from this professor that I had. And he became a good friend, did a lot of trips with him where we would travel to different places and see different places and have those
he lit your
experiences.
candle for sure.
Yeah,
He
yeah. So
definitely
he was very impactful to me making the decision
Give him a
to go that
shout
way.
out. Is he still with us?
It was Jack Williams.
There you
Yeah.
go. Professor Jack Williams?
Professor Jack Williams.
At the
yeah.
University of?
Auburn University.
Oh, there you go. Auburn
There you go.
University. There you go. That's right, Auburn.
And that was a few years ago?
A few.
How long have you been...
Joey, you're not going to get it out of her. If you're going to ask her her age, it ain't
no, I
happening.
wasn't. I would not do that. But I would
Maybe,
ask.
maybe.
How long have you been professionally practicing as a landscape architect?
I've been doing this about 21 years.
Wow.
And I started it in Tampa. I moved. We were living in the Panhandle right after college. Kind of the summer after we graduated. the summer after I graduated, my husband and I got married, and we were trying to decide where to go. We were interested in the Pensacola area because it was close to his family, and we had a lot of family and things going on up there for us, but the job market wasn't there, and we just decided, hey, let's try something, and moved to Tampa, and have lived in Tampa, Sarasota. Now I'm in St. Petersburg, but the other thing impacting us moving to Tampa was actually Hurricane Ivan. It came through the weekend before our wedding. So we got back from our honeymoon, went to see our apartment, no roof. And then also there's just a lot of rebuilding going on there. So
That's the one that went through Mexico City? Or not
that
Mexico
was-
City, something.
this was in 2000.
With Mexico Beach? Or?
I think Michael was in Mexico Beach,
There you
but
go.
this was I think I hit Gulf Shores, right somewhere between Gulf Shores and Pensacola.
Wow.
So
Where's Alabama?
we kind of made our way down here. We're still in the hurricane pass, though, as we all saw last year.
Yeah.
We're not free from it, but we definitely get hit a lot less here. But it really was a good start for my career down here to come down and get some opportunities to work on some amazing projects over time.
Does your husband share your desire and your interest in landscape architecture?
He does know he can pick out, palm species and things like that.
that's
so
pretty cool.
I can be proud of him in that aspect. But he knows
We
the
love our
difference
queen
between some
palms.
of the
We love our
palms.
queen palms. They're beautiful.
Yeah. So, this is causing me to think about a number of things. If you become certified and degreed and licensed and whatever you have to have, by the way, I'm not sure you could elucidate on that as a landscape architect. You obviously landscape is really different in Washington State than Florida. So, how does that? How do you must have to have this, or do the rules that you learn in design sort of apply to everything? Is there a uniform ideology about that?
There are some basics, and then there are some geographical differences where you have to understand climate, environment, geography, and some different things. In Florida, there's an exam, and it's the same exam for every state, but then each state will have their add-on state exam. Sometimes,
Okay.
not all of them do. So, for instance, Florida has a specific exam where there's a lot about water use, sea turtles,
Right.
dune preservation,
100%.
and those types of things.
Well, we have
that
a
impact
very
the environment.
delicate, different kind of ecosystem in Florida compared to anywhere else in the country. So, right? So there's a lot of things that have to be brought into consideration that you would not be doing in Alabama
Or Arkansas.
or Utah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we have a great biodiversity across the state here. And coming here from Alabama, I had to learn a lot of those differences. And just from working in Tampa, I was working on Hillsborough County and Pasco County projects, and then I would start working in Sarasota and Manatee County. And there are slight differences between each one, and you get into different water use restrictions, different plants that work an hour north and don't work an
Don't
hour
work
south,
here.
or vice versa. So lots of little things to learn, and learning about microclimates in different areas and being able to advise on that.
How many different quadrants or how many different sections of the U.S. have you worked in? And two-part question. Part B is there a favorite for you? And, of course, we know your favorite town to live in is Tampa. We're not going to ask you to choose between Tampa, Sarasota, St. Pete, Clearwater. Not at all. But is there a favorite region of the country that you found, wow, this is particularly challenging but rewarding as well?
Really, most of my work has been focused here in the Gulf Coast of Florida, down to Lee County up to Citrus County, and then inland towards Orlando. Really, most of my work's been focused there, but I do appreciate some of the other environments when I get to travel.
Yeah, I was
sure.
going to say, because it's so different maybe in that
Yeah.
instance. And when you talk to your professional colleagues, that's an opportunity for you to grow a little bit and learn something different, a new skill set maybe that you didn't consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
These microclimates you're talking about are
Yeah, what is
interesting
that?
because it is true that I have an interest in, I'm always putting my hands in dirt and that sort of thing. I grew up that way. And it's fascinating what will grow here and what will not grow 40 miles away.
Yeah, an
It's
hour south.
fascinating, yeah. The history of Ybor City was based on the guava.
Correct.
The original expedition came to create a guava plantation in Tampa. And when they got here, they found out, oops, mangoes and citrus grow well in this immediate area. But
That one cold freeze.
how many guava trees have you seen in Tampa?
None.
And there's a reason for that. And so the fact that the guava plantation failed set the stage for Vicente Martinez Ybor to come and build his factory town. So plants have a huge impact on history, right?
They do. Joe, I really appreciate how much you know about the history. It's fascinating to me. I always love learning.
Listen, just let him go. Let him go because Joey knows a lot. There's a reason that size 8 dome there. He's got a lot of stuff in there. For those of you that are at home, that's his hat size.
Yeah.
Hey, Joey, let me take a minute and remind everybody who we are.
I appreciate the flattery, by the way.
Of course, buddy. Of course. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Hannah McAleer, and she's got a lot to say.
You're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM Tampa.
If you've got a specific question you'd like to ask Hannah relative to what she's discussing with us here today, or just a question about what it is that's around the corner for her, we're going to ask that question later. And around the corner for Tampa specifically, you can call us at 813-239-9663. You can always send us a text at 813-433-0885. Emails are welcomed. DJ at WMNF.org. My goodness, we've got a couple of people that have been waiting. Mario, every once in a while, just look over your left shoulder at the screen that is informing you that we have people on hold. Hannah, I've got to honor this one person that's calling, and she's been holding, bless her heart, for 15 minutes. And I've got to honor that. So we're going to go to her now, and here she is.
Mary from Memphis.
Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am, honey.
Thank you so much for holding, and please forgive me for not having noticed that you've been holding for 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mary from Arkansas.
What part of Arkansas is she from? What town?
There you go. What part of Arkansas are you from, Miss Hannah?
Crossett, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that place?
I know where that is. I'm from Rector, Arkansas. My sister lives most of the time in Paragould. We're on the northeast side.
I have some family in Paragould, and my parents are actually in Jonesboro, so they are up your way.
But the thing is, you get down here, my dogs got out and started walking like they was high-stepping because of the sand. You know, I miss my southeast Missouri Delta mud.
That sand is a little different, is it not, Mary?
Oh, my God.
Right?
Grow. I had my puppy dog who was 13 and a half. He passed. I want to plant something back there, but I don't know what will grow best. Would it be? He loves that sand crab when he bumps into it. And I love gardenia. Which would be best to plant here? I will be moving. I want something that will last.
Well, Mary, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in real quick and tell you that if you'll just listen to us in a couple of weeks when we have Annie Ellis on, she'll probably be able to answer that question. But maybe Miss Hannah has a suggestion.
Well, I appreciate a suggestion from Miss Hannah.
What do you think, Miss Hannah?
What were the two choices you were between?
Gardenia. I heard gardenia smells real nice. What else?
I love gardenias. I have one in my front yard, and I do very little to it, and it stays happy.
Well, it gets sun in the morning, the place I want to put it, but it's got that sand dirt. Do I need to put a soil in there?
Yeah, I think you could. The best thing I would recommend would be see if you have a county extension office, and a lot of times they will have resources, and they will have plant lists for adapted for specific types of soils, and that would be a really good place to start and look at some options that would be good for that sandy soil you're looking at.
Okay, I want to plant something on his grave for, at least for instance.
Of course, to commemorate your puppy.
That'll live, you know.
Mary, we are so grateful that you called. And listen, are you listening to us on the computer from Arkansas? Are you listening to us on the computer?
No, I'm in Dunedin at my sister's right now.
Oh, okay. But you're from Arkansas. I got you. Well, we are so grateful that you called. And again, thank you, sweetie, for holding on as long as you did, because we appreciate you.
It's been wonderful. It's been very informative. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you, Mary.
That's beautiful. So, when I saw Arkansas, I got all chilly because I thought maybe they're listening to us all the way in Arkansas. That's wonderful. Yeah. We got another caller. David, we see you there. Hang just a couple of minutes. We'll come right back around to you. So, do you get those questions sometimes too?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
everybody with a yard has a question about what they should do with it.
Now that you're
a landscape architect.
So a lot of times, you said that in stereo, Joey. So a lot of times, you might be able to tell them, listen, I don't know exactly which indigenous plants you want to plant there, but I can tell you what you don't want to have over there in that corner is that gazebo. What are you doing with that over there? So that's more in your bailiwick.
Yeah, so, some of what we do.
Okay. All right. Want to take this next call?
Yeah, let's do
Joey,
that.
let's do it, because I want to honor David, who's been hanging on for 10 minutes. And David, we're coming to you right now. David in Tampa, are you on the air?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Hi, David.
Thanks for your guest today. I was curious, would a landscape architect work on like a urban trail, and determine where amenities would be for an urban trail type thing, like for bikes and pedestrians?
Absolutely. We, as landscape architects, are able to do a lot of pedestrian planning and mobility planning, and also a lot of what we do in urban settings is look at complete streets, which is really about, not prioritizing one type of mobility over another, but looking at how everyone coexists in harmony on the same streets. And we do a lot of trails, trail planning. We do both urban and nature trails. There are lots of facets to that, focusing on the trail material, the trail type. Is there going to be shade along the trail? Where should the amenities be planned? What type of amenities should be planned? Really, dive into all things. What color are the benches going to be along the trail? We really specify all of that type of stuff in our designs.
Interesting.
Terrific. I was just curious. One thing I've noticed that the Courtney Campbell Trail in particular here in between Tampa and Clearwater doesn't seem to have many amenities along it. So, and I always thought that was weird because it's so heavily used, and I kind of worry about the same with the Howard Franklin, bike and pedestrian trail that's not open yet, but it will be next year. But I just hope that that the designers will kind of think about that sort of thing, more, bathrooms or shade or whatever,
David, let's ask Hannah, and I would suggest to you, if you have an idea, to share it with us now, and then perhaps, Hannah, where would he direct if he has an idea for these? Because it sounds like David, conscientious as he would like to see something there. If he has an idea, where could he send it?
Yeah, a lot of times those ideas get listened to at city council meetings or FDOT's the governing agency over the Howard Franklin Bridge. So they've, a lot of times when a project like that's going on, they'll have community workshops. But you're very right. A trail, especially with, that length, would really benefit from some areas of shade and refuge, but also just you're right there along the bay, and it's beautiful. And why not just soak in that experience and provide some opportunities to do that? So I agree with you. I hope that the designers planning that really pay attention to that.
Thank you. I wanted to just a quick shout out to the Tampa Bay Times did a great, really long format editorial about pedestrian safety. So I encourage your listeners to check that out if they haven't already.
David, we certainly appreciate your call, man. You've called us before. I have a sense that you've called us before, and your calls are always insightful, and your questions are always spot on. So thank you, my brother.
Thank you, David. Those are great points.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So listen, we're learning so much today. For example, shade and refuge. I wouldn't have referred to it as shade and refuge. I would have just referred to it as a place to sit down with an umbrella. You know what I mean? It's like, man, there are terminology. There is terminology.
Well, yeah, today.
Proper terminology.
By the way, today it happens to be because environmental issues is our monthly theme that the show's lined up, and I don't have the specific information of who was guest hosting, but Midpoint, the Midpoint show today earlier was about canopy and shade throughout Tampa. And then Talking Animals, the show theme was about eco-restoration. So it all kinds of fits. You're talking about shade trees. I will, for the sake of clarity and visibility, let everybody know that I met Hannah through the fact that we are...
Under a shady tree?
No, but...
A lack of shady trees, maybe.
Because of a lack of shady trees.
There you go.
Because we are working in Ybor City, as well as much of the city, of course, course, is working on a canopy restoration program or a canopy program because the mayor has made the designation that we are very short of canopies in the Tampa city limits. And let me say that people who don't understand the complexity of that subject is that what happens is that you become aware that everything in the world is working against trees because private owners want to cut them down. Developers want to cut them down often. Storms kill them. Disease kills them. And so what happens is very often, particularly in an area that's been very, very established by human activity, a tree gets removed and it never gets replaced. And so what we're finding is that we are trying to bring trees back, and we, our neighborhood association, under the guidance of our infrastructure committee headed by Ed Austin in our neighborhood, we created this meeting, and I met Hannah, and we started talking extensively about this subject. But it's a very important part of what's happening in the Tampa area is trees, right?
Doesn't Tampa have one of the most incredible canopies? Isn't it renowned in the United States of America? And we always suffer because our hurricane seasons are always, first front of mind.
I kind of thought so too, but then I started seeing some of the research and mapping that is going on, and there's actually a good bit of canopy loss in the city of Tampa, which I was a little surprised by.
Yes.
But
that hurts my heart.
Some of it's from new development, some of it from storms, some from just conflicts, the trees in conflict with power lines or other types of utilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of that comes down to putting the right tree in the right place. That's something that you'll hear landscape architects talk about a lot, and really is ingrained in our brains to not put the wrong thing in the wrong place, because then ultimately it's just going to cause problems and it's not going to be there long term. So we've really been working through that project in Ybor and identifying opportunities. And as Joe mentioned, it came about because they started looking at the data and research and developing maps of where the most intense heat islands were, which means, typically there are areas of heavy pavement, lack of canopy, and those type of things, carbon emissions and things like that just contribute to the heat. So there are heat island maps out there you can look at. And when you look at a lot of Tampa, it's mostly red.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is the opposite of what you think.
Yeah, we got to fix that.
Yeah, and so what happens is we have this extensive heat island problem, and the other side of that is that if you're just sort of casually thinking about this, you would think, well, you just plant some trees. No, that's not what what happens is that you have to determine species, you have to determine availability, you have to determine what's happening in infrastructure under the ground, and then how do you water that tree? If you plant a tree and you don't water it, it will die.
It won't be a tree for very long.
Right. So there's a lot here at work to somehow make all of this come together, and Hannah's expertise has been invaluable to us.
And now we know why Hannah makes the big bucks. So Hannah, I wanted to ask you also. I think it's a passion project. I digress. I don't think that. I think you go into the field that Hannah goes into because different motivations. But is there a city in the U.S., of course, Europe is a whole different situation, South America, but is there a city in the U.S. that most people would be gobsmacked because it's like really way out there on the edge of what it means to be really responsible with their environmental planning and architecture, or one that is just a personal favorite of yours that you visited?
Yeah, I've heard and seen some studies of different areas, and every city's planned a little different, and it's all grown in its own way and evolved over time. Some have better transportation than others, which really does help open up more pedestrian spaces when you're getting cars off the road. And then I'm not sure about the best city. I'd say some of the best cities are probably the underdeveloped cities.
The ones that have promised yet to maybe change the
because
culture.
development is kind of, unfortunately, the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And
the antithesis of what you're trying to accomplish.
I once had a developer say to me, he said, these words came out of his mouth: when I see trees being cut down, I know something good is happening, because he believes that that's what it's about. Now, to that end, let me ask you this question. Why don't you take us through a step-by-step on this? What I discovered when I first came to Ybor City was that historic preservation is a scholarly approach. In other words, you have to learn about it to understand it. Because if you're a person that walks off the street, and let's say you bought a house in Ybor City within the Barrio Latino district, and somebody came to you and said, oh, no, you can't put aluminum windows in your house. Oh, you can't put a tile roof on that house, right? You can't. What happens is that we as Americans want to be as lawless as possible, apparently. And so now what
Apparently.
we say, apparently. So we say, well, I can do whatever I want with my property. Well, it doesn't work that way. So having said that, there is this curve of a scholarship that has to happen. What I'm hearing you say is that when you meet with let's talk a little bit about a typical, if you can come up with this, sort of a typical client, and you're going to meet with that client, and you may have to explain something to that client doesn't want to hear. How does that work?
It's always better to deliver the bad news as early as possible.
Okay.
We have learned that. So,
Okay.
We really, when we meet with our clients, we want to understand before we do anything, what is their vision and what are their goals. And once we define that, we can start looking at how are we going to meet those. And then when we start seeing challenges to hurdles that we're going to have to get over to meet that, then we really have to do some work and find solutions. We want to be very solution oriented. I like to, anytime I come to a client with a problem, I like to have a solution shortly behind it so that we're not, I don't want to just give them the problems, but
Right.
usually you can find a solution, and it may not be an easy solution all the time, but usually if you really think about it and think through what's the intent and the goal, how are we going to get there, and how are we going to make that beneficial for everybody involved? You can usually find a solution.
It sounds as if there might be the scenario that you run into more times than not, Hannah, is compromise, number one. And what the medical profession knows all too well is do less harm or do no harm. In other words, we're not trying to make this worse. In fact, we're trying to make it better. But if we can't make it appreciably better, let's not make it worse.
Yeah.
You find yourself in that situation a lot of times?
Very often.
Yeah.
But also, isn't it the case that your firm, each time you complete a project, that project is now in your portfolio, so to speak?
Correct.
And you don't want that project to be something you're not proud of.
That's true too.
So let's just say for a moment, have you had this happen where a client comes to you with something that's just downright ridiculous? I mean, you just go, oh no, we cannot put our name on that. Has that happened? You don't have to name the specific client. I'm just saying.
sure.
Unless you're watching us on Facebook now, you cannot see how uncomfortable Hannah just became.
There definitely have been instances where, I just in the back of my head might go, oh, there's, that's a really dumb idea or something, but not often. I think for the most part, our clients are very educated and they want to do the right thing too. At the end of the day, they're trying to sell something also, and their name's on it too. It's not just our name, so their name's on it too. And most people don't want to put out something that they're not proud of. And, I don't think it's a company thing as much as a personal thing, both really. But most people don't want to put their name associated with something that they're not going to be proud of.
Okay.
So
Joey, I got it. Joey, ask Hannah, is there, because we're coming up to the, last 10 minutes of the show. And now that people are getting to know Hannah on a more personal note, and know her and feel her sense of responsibility and duty to doing a great job for our community, which now she's adopted as her own. Is there any place around town where somebody might be able to go, who might be listening to us, and see the result of your work that you're particularly proud of? Like, that project was really good. You guys want to check it out? This is where it's at.
Yeah, let me think. I've worked on a lot of projects over the last 20 years. I'm really proud about some of the community parks we did at the Bexley community. That was a project I worked on. Soon to come, we've got a project in Manatee County called Firethorn that's going to have an awesome community park. It will probably be built it'll start construction probably 2026. But that's going to have really great community space, and we're also we're working with NWF, National Wildlife Federation, to do certified monarch gardens, which has pollinator gardens, and that's really fun to work with.
Beautiful.
And then we're also doing certified nature play spaces, which really are about getting kids back to more of an experience than just coming to play on a playground. It's, getting in the dirt and getting your hands dirty, which is right up my alley because that's how I grew up.
Right. Right.
But really, I think a lot of these projects, it's both parks that I've talked about, and also at New Tampa Nature Park, I worked on a trails plan there in my last job too, which was really exciting. We got to go out in the woods and see the site, get to really experience what was out there, and start figuring out where trails went, mapping those out, and then doing wayfinding, master planning, so that it tied back into the project and identifying different ecosystems where we could do some educational signage. And I think a lot of that is really important because if you can have people enjoy and appreciate what they're doing, but also kind of remind them, hey, this is why it's important when it comes to environment and sustainability and appreciating those types of things. If they appreciate it, they're going to care for it and be good stewards themselves. And I think that's really important in what we do.
That's awesome. So what percentage of your projects, I'm curious, would be parks and trails, do you think?
Well, a lot of what we do is master plan communities, and all of those have a good bit of parks and trails in them.
Okay.
And we also do some standalone parks and trails, maybe 30% parks and trails.
Okay.
And then we get into urban design, which, you can call plazas parks also, I think,
Right.
urban parks.
Right. And then what percentage of your projects would be basically the environment around a building, a single building? Is that much?
Probably a pretty low percentage.
Okay.
We do that.
Bigger
but
green
it's-
spaces
Yeah.
is what you're involved
yeah,
in.
we're really looking at larger spaces, but within that, we often design, if we're doing a nature center or something, we would design the landscape right around the building too, but we're kind of looking at it from a concept site planning perspective to come into that and then start honing
Joe.
in on those details.
Joey, I have a question that popped into my head just now, and I've got to get it out because time is just going away from us. So, since you've been in the business for 20 years now and actively been in this world of planning and creating and art, really and truthfully, how much has technology helped you in that? I'm sure when this started maybe 100 years ago, people had to sketch what they were thinking. Now you have computer software that allows you to move that tree from here to over there, like when you're designing a golf course. Do you have that kind of technology at your fingertips, and how helpful is that?
Yes, it's very helpful. I am a little old school. I still like to hand draw. I have a lot of tracing paper in my office.
There you go. There you go.
I like to print things and get our team around a table and look at them and do charrettes. So we do a lot of that, but then...
What's a charrette?
Oh, a
For those that
charrette.
don't
Okay,
know.
yeah, that's a really good question. A charrette is when you get a team together and you develop ideas about a particular thing. You have a specific study area to do, and a lot of times it might be an amenity or a community entry or
Collaborative.
a vision. What is the vision of this project going to be, and what are the goals? So, really getting that collaboration with the team, and you get so many more ideas if you try to design something in a silo. It could be so much better when you involve more people.
Right.
You won't be working on that team too much longer, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Collaboration. I love
Have
it.
you
Yeah,
ever had
it's
your heart
really
just
big.
broken? Like, Hannah, you just knew this was going to be the thing to put there. Like, oh my gosh, this is it. And nobody sees your vision.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That happens a lot.
Doesn't
And
happen
it's-
here
it's
ever.
usually-
Doesn't happen on the conversation ever.
It's usually budget driven, but
Right.
a lot of times I look at it and I'm like, okay, this one thing I was really attached to might have gotten cut, but I'm likely going to be the only person that really knows it's gone from this at the end of the day, and
Right,
it's still
right.
going
Do
to
you
be a
mope
great
all the way
project.
home and then tell
Right.
your husband about it, kind of thing?
I don't.
I would.
I usually.
So at your firm, speaking of collaboration, what are there other? How many other
Environmental architects.
Are there other landscape architects in the firm other than yourself, or are you?
Absolutely. We've
Are-
got a team of 5 people in
Okay.
Tampa. And then we also collaborate, though, with a lot of other staff in our other offices, too. And with us having different offices and understanding everyone has a little bit of a different expertise in different areas of the design or what we do, it's really nice because we can sometimes pair the right person with the right thing.
Right,
and
right.
it's a really collaborative process between our offices.
And in
too.
this collaboration in Charette, it would be you and staff, or you and other architects, landscape architects too.
Other staff that are
Or-
landscape architects.
So you're
or landscape
on a
architect
project
trained.
that's your project. You're the lead of the. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
but
it.
we have other project managers too that take the leads on
Right,
different projects.
right,
and
right.
So, Joy, because somebody once said, somebody not so famous but very brilliant once said that everything is political, right? Like everything
Right.
is political. Can you just see Hannah making a phone call, like at 11 o'clock at night, going, look, I know we're going to do this meeting tomorrow, and I really need you to support me with that water feature that I know is going to go really well there. Do you guys do any horse trading behind the scenes? Come on, give us a little.
I'm sure it happens.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens. I've done it a lot, but it's sure. Yeah.
She
I would
says
think
it happens.
Well, it's natural in the process,
Right.
right?
Yeah, we will say I'm working on a project with one client, and she's really liking what we've come to the table with. And,
There you go.
And we were trying to determine what to name one of our meetings with the team that she had to present to, and she said, I really don't want them to think they can have input. What should we call this? So, we were coming up with names that way, and
There you go.
it's really about how you present it.
Sure.
If you've got to be confident in.
And there's ways of of making inclusion part of your process.
Has to be.
Yeah, it
I would
has to
think
be.
if it's a
Right,
collaboration.
right.
So if there's a magic wand that Hannah could wave in the last 5 minutes and have one project really come to fruition right now as we're sitting here, can you share that with us, Hannah?
I
For the
think-
city of Tampa or, for the Tampa Bay area?
Yeah,
writ
from a community standpoint, I think it'd be great if we could just really be thoughtful about planning and coming up with a bigger picture framework, because a lot of times what happens is these projects will happen in a silo, like I was talking about, designing in a silo. You might have one department of the city funding a project, and all they're thinking about is that thing that they're used to, and they're not getting the team involved for that collaborative process. But if they all talk to other departments and teams, they probably could come up with some really awesome things that are inclusive of your, pedestrian
Mobility
safety
issues.
and mobility, and also
ADA, you
shade
have
and
ADA.
things like that, transportation, and really kind of envelop everything into really look more holistically and completely at each project, I think would be something that could benefit everybody.
I've become a huge fan of planning over the last 30 years in my experiences, particularly in Ybor
We
City.
don't think about it in our youth, because in our youth, that's not something that you have
Yeah.
to have the experience of a little bit of wear behind you, right?
Yeah.
A little, and I guess you get to a certain age, and then all of a sudden you realize that now you're hitting your stride.
We need to think about this. Now, before we
And we're getting
get
ready
to
to
the
close.
end, is there a place where people can, there's nothing wrong with you talking about your company, is there a place where people can go look at the work that your company does?
Lovely.
Yes, the best place would be rviplanning.com. Our website highlights quite a few of our projects. I think we're also pretty active on Instagram and LinkedIn also.
Of course,
Yeah, you can look
yes.
up there.
Well, did you have fun today, Hannah?
I did. I really appreciate you guys having
Of
me
course.
today.
Was there anything that we didn't ask that maybe you might want to share with us before we get out of here? Or is a shout out to anybody in particular?
It is my cousin's birthday. He's also a landscape architect,
Oh,
so
nice.
I'd like to say happy
Oh,
birthday
how
to
cool.
him.
Your cousin from Arkansas?
No, he's actually my husband's cousin.
Okay.
So his name's Stephen Green.
And where's he doing his work?
He is doing his work here in Tampa too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, how
I
nice.
bet those Thanksgiving dinners are a lot of fun.
It's
You know,
in
when
the
we-
family.
When we get together, my husband says we've got to get all of the shop talk out of our system immediately. So,
Right, right.
We get our 15, 20 minutes to get it all out, and then my husband will come hang
Go
out
back and
with
join
us.
the party.
Yeah.
That's
Well-
great, Hannah. We
Yeah.
so appreciate you coming in today and sharing some of your insights with us and some of your personal story as well. I know a lot of people don't like to talk too much about their personal narratives, but we appreciate you sharing some of yours with us. And thank you for being not only here with us today here in WMNF, but in this community to offer your expertise and your kindness and your love.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Joey, thanks for bringing Hannah in. 'cause
Yeah,
she
absolutely.
was your get.
Every time you walk into a park that's been planned, that hasn't been there for 150 years, think about the fact that somebody planned it and somebody cared about what it looks like, and that's what's important.
And we're not trying to build any more pickleball courts, okay? Just leaving that right there. Joey, who's coming up next?
Oh, next we have, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Jessica Green, our board op, who is the OG with the mostest.
Yes.
She makes all this possible. And then also thank you to Santiago.
We gave him some work today, Santiago.
He had a
We
couple
gave him
of
some
phone
work
calls to
today.
deal with, absolutely. And then coming up next is the master of music, Jim Bannon. Stay tuned. He's there ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, he's getting the station ready. He's getting his studio ready to go. Hannah, once again, thank you, sweetie. This forum is open to you anytime. If you've got a bulletin, something we need to share with our community of listeners, please let us know.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for listening today. We'll see you on the radio again next week on Wednesday at noon. You're listening to WMNF 88.5 Tampa.